In today's Leeds news, Manor Solomon situation, new Debayo contract, Joseph not considered up for sale, and today's Rumour Mill stories with Joe Gomes, Diarra, Fofana and Meslier. Morning folks, Jer here Monday morning with your Leeds United news. I hope you had a lovely weekend. We tried something a little bit new at the weekend on Saturday where we wrapped up the entire week's stories and gave you updates on some of the stuff we didn't cover as well, and the plan will be to continue moving that forward. Massive thank you to everyone who's commented on that video and watched it. It's been more successful than we thought it would be, so really appreciate everyone who's watched that. There's a bit of stuff to get stuck into today, and we'll start off with a player who left Leeds United temporarily, possibly at the end of last season, and where his future will be now, and that's Manor Solomon. There were some reports a few weeks back that new Tottenham Hotspur manager Thomas Frank was keen to take Manor Solomon on their pre-season tour to get a closer look at the winger after being very impressed with his performances last season for Leeds United. Leeds had made Solomon a priority signing this summer, but reports from Leeds Live say that Daniel Levy quoted Leeds United a bloated transfer fee which made a move back to Leeds United very unrealistic this summer. Solomon is now believed to have told Spurs that he would ideally like to stay at the North London club and fight for a position in the team next year. The report states that Solomon has made it clear that his preference is to stay at Spurs and compete for a position next season, which pretty much rules out any possibility of a move back to Leeds United this summer. It feels pretty concrete, especially if there's a transfer fee that is in excess of what Leeds can afford or deem the value of the player. But yeah, as of right now, it looks like Leeds will be looking at other wide options instead of Manor Solomon. It's not a position we really have got a huge amount of concern with. We've got options there with Willie Gnonto, Ramazani and Dan James as well. Brendan Anderson can play wide on the right as well. So there are other options there, but it could be a decision Leeds make later in the window on that one, and depending on how his pre-season with Tottenham Hotspur goes, he could then become available later on the window. Similar, I suppose, to what happened last summer. But let's move on and talk about a new contract situation at the club. Leeds United's 19-year-old centre-back James Debayo is out of contract this summer, and Leeds were said to have offered him a new deal a couple of weeks ago. And we're just waiting to hear back on whether he had been accepted. It is now my understanding that I've heard today that James Debayo will sign a new deal at Leeds United coming into next season and is then expected to be loaned out in the coming campaign to help with his development. Debayo is highly rated by the club, and at 19 years of age needs more game time for his development, and sitting on the bench next season doesn't really have any benefit for him. Leeds tying him down is a smart move, and then looking at getting him out on loan next season in order to allow him to play more minutes and get more game time. It also means that with Leeds bringing in Jakobio, there's more competition for those centre-back positions and likely to push Debayo further down the pecking order. He's 19 years of age, he's got plenty of time for development and to break into that Leeds United first team, but great that Leeds are locking him down right now and then seeing him move out on loan next season to get those much needed minutes for young players to continue their development. So good news this morning from an academy perspective. Let's move on. Let's talk about Matteo Joseph, and although Matteo Joseph's European under-21 campaign may have come to an end at the hands of England, his future at Leeds United might not be coming to an end just yet, and reports of his demise might be slightly exaggerated. According to Kyle Newbold in the Yorkshire Evening Post, he says the Leeds United stance on Matteo Joseph has not changed this summer. Joseph is expected to hold talks with the club around his next steps when he returns after his break, and we all know that Real Betis have been very keen on the striker this summer, but they are now said to be considering other attacking options moving forward. Joseph wants to play more games. He had a conversation with the media last week where he said he wants to play more games, and that is understandable for a player of his age as a massive part of their development, but an exit at that point looked possibly likely. But the Yorkshire Evening Post understands that Leeds United's stance hasn't changed and the player is not viewed as being up for sale, and it would take a considerable offer to change Leeds United's mind on the situation. Betis are said to value Matteo Joseph at in and around £8.5 million, but according to Diario de Sevilla, they say that Leeds United value Joseph in excess of £10 million. Betis are said, as I've already said, to now look elsewhere this summer for new targets. It's not a guarantee that Matteo Joseph will stay at the club moving forward, but it does mean as of right now, it's going to take something substantial for Leeds United to let the player to move on a permanent basis. I've made my position clear on this. I think I'd like to see Matteo Joseph go out on loan this summer, and again, like Debayo, get much needed minutes to help with his development. Let's move into the Rumour Mill territory, and a new week and new links floating around, and some more credible than others, but we will start off with a defender option and Liverpool's Joe Gomes. Liverpool's 28-year-old defender Joe Gomes has been linked with a move to Leeds United this weekend, and Gomes is said to be surplus to requirement at Anfield moving into next season. Leeds have already brought in Yakia Bial, but with Max Verber likely to move away from the club this summer, and with James Debayo potentially heading out on loan, Leeds would need another addition in there to give them that 2-player per position option. Where prior to Bial, Leeds would have just had Pascal Stroke and Joe Rodon in those positions. Adding an additional centre-back in this position would be smart to give Leeds those 2 players per position and remove the option of having to drop Ethan Ampadu back into centre-half should there be an injury to one of the 2 centre-halves, and potentially Yakia Bial as well. Crystal Palace and West Ham are both said to be also interested in bringing Joe Gomes to the club, and he is seen as an expensive addition should Leeds decide to go down this route. For me, this one seems unlikely, a price tag of around about £30 million, and said to be interest from Crystal Palace, with Liverpool said to have interest in their centre-half Mark Gahey, means that there could potentially be a swap going on between those 2 clubs, and likely rule Leeds out of a move for the player. It's an interesting one. He is an experienced defender, can play in multiple positions across the back line, would be a good option for Leeds, but £30 million would be excessive unless he was likely to go into the starting lineup. But Yakia Bial is also expected to go into the starting lineup, so you could be seeing a defensive overhaul. But for me, that one probably less likely. Let's talk about a new goalkeeper link, and according to reports in France, Leeds may have some interest in Angers stopper Yahia Fofana, and experienced commentator Ian Darke believes that there could be a hidden gem in this goalkeeper, and he has said there are similarities between Fofana and Petr Cech, and he could have a similar impact at Leeds that Petr Cech had when he moved to Chelsea. Fofana was a relative unknown goalkeeper, but has now become the first choice keeper at the French side and had a very good season last year. And Leeds are said to have scouted the goalkeeper on multiple occasions. Dark said that no one had heard of Fofana, but he has proven now to be a superb addition to Angers. The reports on this one for me are loose. It's definitely massive pinch of salt territory, but it is an interesting link, and he is an interesting goalkeeper for Leeds to be having a look at should they decide to deviate from the other keepers that have been linked with Leeds United this summer. Aaron Ramsdale again being heavily linked with a move to Leeds in over the last couple of days. West Ham are said to be very interested in Ramsdale as well, so this one's going to rumble on, I think, for a little bit longer anyway. Let's talk about Illan Meslier while we're on the goalkeeping talk, and according to the Mail, Illan Meslier is set to leave Leeds United this summer should Leeds get an appropriate bid for the keeper. Reports in France say that Strasbourg are said to be monitoring the situation of Illan Meslier, but they are also trying to tie down a permanent deal for Chelsea goalkeeper Jordi Petrovic, so this one's not cut and dry, but Meslier is said to be on their shortlist. There's no reports on this, whether there's a valuation of the player or whether there's any kind of a formal approach to Leeds United or even talks with Illan Meslier's representatives themselves. And while we're on the goalkeeping topic, let's talk about Nick Pope. And as Burnley looks set to confirm the signing of Karlsruhe goalkeeper Max Weiss, James Trafford is also now said to be in talks with Newcastle United about a move up north, and that could free Nick Pope up for a move this summer. Nick Pope will be seen as a very sensible signing. He's 33 years of age, a very experienced goalkeeper in this division, and England caps under his belt as well. Baron Cross at The Athletic, who's a Newcastle fan, has also talked about how smart a signing Nick Pope would be, and probably the kind of keeper Leeds could do well with bringing in, giving his calming influence and the less spectacular elements of his game, but a very good goalkeeper nonetheless. However, Newcastle United are said to want Nick Pope and James Trafford to compete for that number one position, as they have Champions League football this season, and they want to have adequate competition in all positions across the park, including the goalkeeper position. Pope, at 33 years of age, is not said to be overly keen on sitting on the bench next season. He would likely be seen as the second choice keeper should Trafford make that move to the Magpies, and Pope could then move this summer. As I have said, Leeds have been extensively linked with a move for Nick Pope this summer. He fits the bill of what Leeds are looking for. They've talked about having experienced players who know what's needed in this division, and Nick Pope would definitely tick that box from that perspective. He had a couple of injuries last season, which will be something to keep an eye on. But if Illan Meslier is to leave Leeds, Leeds will obviously need another shot stopper. Most people will want a new shot stopper regardless of what happens in that situation. There are also talks that Illan Meslier is keen to stay and fight for his position at Leeds United, which would be interesting considering the comments that he made 2 years ago when he was linked to the move to Chelsea, and he said he wouldn't move unless he was the first choice keeper at a club. So it's an interesting one to keep an eye on and moving into the summer. And then a quick update on the Habib Diarra situations back in the Rumour Mill territory for now anyway. There are reports coming out of the UK this weekend that Aston Villa have significant interest in Diarra and that they plan to make a move for the central midfielder. That would likely push Leeds down the pecking order as they can offer European football, which Diarra and his representatives are said to want for the player next season. Highly rated across Europe, but it looks like that could be one that could definitely happen in that direction. So we'll keep an eye and see if Leeds can get a deal done for Diarra. If they don't, Noah Siddiqui is obviously the second option that Leeds had, and we'll see what happens. Sean Longstaff obviously heavily linked as well over the last couple of weeks with a move to Leeds United. So ones to keep an eye on, but we'll give you more information on that as and when we hear it. Obviously also keep an eye on the Gabriel Gudmundsson situation as well. There's some increasing reports coming out from Fraser Fletcher at Team Talk about Gudmundsson as well. So more reports likely to come on that one in the coming days. Folks, that'll be it for me today. Massive thanks as always for supporting this channel. I will see you tomorrow morning for more Leeds news and hopefully some announcements coming soon. Talk to you soon. Enjoy your day. See you. Bye.